everybody, so new review today as we were talking Venom, Let There Be Carnage. It's now been over 3 years since the first Venom film. There's been a lot of discourse around that film since then. A lot of people love it, a lot of people don't like it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I've always been kind of mixed on the film as a whole. I've grown on certain elements over the years watching it over again. But I will say, I have been actually quite excited for the sequel, Let There Be Carnage, mainly because of the fact that Carnage is the villain of this film, and Carnage is such a great Spider-Man and Venom villain that, I mean, how could you go wrong with that, right? In this sequel, we find Eddie still adjusting to his new life as the host of the symbiote as he attempts to reignite his career, interviewing notorious serial killer Cletus Cassidy, who causes mayhem after escaping a failed execution when he becomes the host of the symbiote Carnage. Right off the bat, I will say there are some very solid improvements with the sequel, Let There Be Carnage. This time around, everything feels vastly more entertaining. As in Let There Be Carnage, we really do embrace a lot of the stuff that actually did work in the original film. One of those big things in particular is the budding friendship relationship between Eddie Brock and the symbiote Venom. If that's something that you really hated, the budding kind of buddy romance that they had in the first film, you're really not going to be won over by this film. They fully embrace that here. The very large amount of the humor and dialogue between them. It is quite silly, I will admit. It's a very silly kind of movie, but that is the kind of Venom that we are portraying in these films right now. You very much saw the vibes that they were going for in those trailers, portraying this more silly meme kind of version of Venom. And, you know, it doesn't always work, not everything lands, but I think for the most part, the jokes did land for me. One of those big reasons I think that a lot of that stuff does land for me is Tom Hardy. I think he really nails the dual role in this film between Eddie Brock and portraying Venom, and truly gets the character and feels very comfortable in the role, as he does get a story credit for this film, and I think that is a benefit to his character because he is a much more well-rounded character this time around, and I like Eddie Brock a whole lot more in the sequel than I did in that first Venom film. Also, the action sequences in the film are a vast improvement. I do still think they have that fun, entertaining vibe from the first film, while still maintaining this dark edge that these characters are known for. The action really is just pure popcorn entertainment. I do wish that the scenes didn't move as fast as they did in the film, but as a comic book fan, it is just exciting to see Venom face off against Carnage and also Shriek on the big screen. I mean, you can't beat that. One of the big interesting things swirling around this film since it was announced is the fact that Andy Serkis is directing the film. Of course, we know him mainly from his amazing motion capture acting work, but he has dabbled in directing a few times, but this is definitely his biggest project to date. I definitely do think his background in motion capture work really improved and helped elevate many of the characters in their scenes, especially with the fact that Venom and Carnage are these big, larger-than-life CGI characters. I also just think it helps the fact that they also look a lot better in the film visually. Thankfully, in this film, we don't have that hard time figuring out which one is which like we did in the first film between Venom and Riot because they look so similar. Venom and Carnage are vastly different characters. They're very easy to spot who is who in the film. It's not like in the last film where you couldn't tell who was Riot and who was Venom, especially in those darker scenes, because that was one of the things I hated in that last film, is because I couldn't tell which one was which when all of the goo was involved with each other. Even if I did go into this film a little bit hesitant about his portrayal after we saw him at the tail end of the last film, I actually found myself really enjoying the portrayal of Cletus Cassidy played by Woody Harrelson. While I do think it would have been hilarious if we kept that horrible wig from the last film, I do think it's great they gave him a little bit of a haircut upgrade, even if the haircut in this one looks a little silly as well. Now that Woody Harrelson has a full movie to flesh out his character, I think he really does relish in the role, and he does a fantastic job with this character. We've seen Woody Harrelson tackle similar sadistic characters in his career, but he really does lean into the darkness of the character of Cletus Cassidy. Despite the film being PG-13, he's still able to pull out a very devilishly evil performance from the character. It makes for quite a fun, formidable foe for Venom to take on in the film, or even some scenes that really push the limits when it comes to being PG-13. Of course, it is PG-13, it's not rated R, which is kind of disappointing, but I kind of figured that going in. But they really do push it here with Carnage. I think they do their best to try and do justice to the character with just a PG-13 rating. Same goes for Shriek as well. I think it's kind of a bummer that she's kind of not been heavily marketed in the film as much. You kind of just blink and miss her when you see her in a lot of the trailers and all that stuff. But I do think Naomi Harris does a good job here with the material. It just sucks the way that the marketing works, because you wouldn't really know that she's in the marketing if you didn't pay attention to every single frame of the trailers. One of my big gripes about Let There Be Carnage, though, is something I alluded to earlier, and it's the pacing itself. I was absolutely shocked when they announced that the runtime for this film was 97 minutes long, because that's really short for pretty much any comic book movie. Like, literally, I think it's the shortest Marvel movie in the last 30 years or so, and that's pretty crazy to me that you would have a film of this caliber be 97 minutes long. The film really does suffer from it because we're moving so quickly throughout this entire film. There's really not very many portions you have time to breathe, and there are just portions of this movie that just feel like there's a lot of stuff left on the cutting room floor because it does feel sloppily put together in certain sections. Of course, the big thing that's going to come out of this movie is a discussion for the post-credit scene for the film, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Unfortunately, I had that spoiled for me many weeks ago because people don't know how to not spoil things for people. You know, that's the internet for you. You can't help help it sometimes. But I do think the actual post-credit scene is pretty great and awesome and sets up a lot of fun future stuff that I think is going to be really great to see actually unfold. It's absolutely a moment that's very exciting if you're a huge comic book fan, just because of the potential there. But yeah, overall for a film, Venom Let There Be Carnage, I think it's solid enough. I think it is a slight improvement on the original film. Definitely not a perfect film by any means, but I do think it's solid enough that you can actually have some fun entertainment with it if you're a fan of the first film especially. But make sure you share your thoughts down below. What you think of the film when it comes to theaters. Did you like the film? Did you not like the film? Also, if you want to share your non-spoilery kind of thoughts about the film and also the post-credit scene, make sure you share those down below and try to be at least discreet about it, at least a little bit, at least for a couple days, you know, give me a couple days at least. But thank you guys as always, checking out my reviews, I really appreciate it. Make sure to like and subscribe button, okay, date reviews, show actions, unboxings, and more on the channel. But next time, I'll see you guys later.